If you do not know how to get a key to the Forsaken Dungeon, be sure to check out the video I released yesterday called The Fastest and Cheapest Way to Get a Dungeon Key. In that 3-minute video, I cover every detail of killing the gatekeeper and getting the dungeon key. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the cheapest way to get the final chest at the end of the Forsaken Dungeon. The dungeon is a series of randomly generated rooms which vary in difficulty. Some of these rooms lead you to the final chest, and others do not. If you do it perfectly, you will only have to complete 17 rooms. But if you follow a lot of false paths, you could find yourself completing closer to 30. So the first step in doing the dungeon efficiently is to know how to identify what is a fake route versus the main route. When you enter a room with multiple doors, first open all of them. This will sometimes aggro some enemies, which isn't great, but it will allow you to see your options. Empty rooms are freebies. Go ahead and open all the doors in those rooms to see what options you have further in. Once you see all of your options, there are 3 clues that can help you find the right path. The first clue is if one of the rooms has multiple doors. This is not a guarantee, but if all the rooms look similar, choose the one that has multiple doors because it has a slight better chance of leading you to the final room. The second clue is if there is a desecrator or forsaken in the room. While it's possible that one of these could be in a false path, it's unlikely. Almost every time you see one of these more difficult enemies, that room is the correct path. The third clue is similar. If you see a room with a dense patch of enemies, that room is the correct path. We can't be 100% sure on this yet, but out of the dozens of examples we've looked at, this has always been true. The second step to being efficient at the dungeon is to know what to bring. As I mentioned in my second pocket video, using a tier 4 chest opens up a lot of opportunities for you, which can be extremely helpful in the dungeon. However, in your journey through the dungeon, you will need 3 sets of armor, which makes using tier 4 gear really expensive. In my opinion, tier 2 gear is the most efficient armor to use in the dungeon. It reduces damage by 50% and it does not require copper or bronze to craft it. Furthermore, if you take home all of the loot that you get from the enemies you kill, you should gain enough materials to recraft the armor you used. So even if you craft a tier 4 chestplate for yourself, I would recommend using tier 2 gear for your other 4 pieces of armor. If you bring 2 sets with you, you should be able to craft your 3rd set while on site from the loot you recover. You will also need food. If you know how to farm effectively, you should have lots of food sitting around in your base. I apologize again that I have not had the chance to make farming videos for Grimsoul yet. Now that the dungeon has been released, it is very high on my list. If you have a lot of bitter tinctures saved up, it might be good to use it for your first few times going through the dungeon. If you don't know what you're doing, you will likely get swarmed once or twice, and having the ability to heal yourself instantly is incredible. Or if you have a second pocket, using Scrolls of Terror can buy yourself a lot of time to heal yourself with normal food. If you have saved up and are wanting to use all of the honey and water in your inbox, this is a great tactic for saving inventory space, but make sure to always keep some food on hand so you're not trying to get it out of your inbox while you're being chased. Lastly, I recommend bringing 5 cart thills, 3 tier 2 weapons, or if you want to save on food and armor, then make these tier 3 weapons, but don't use a one-handed sword in the dungeon. It's worthless. And then 3 tier 4 weapons. This brings us to the 3rd step to being efficient of the dungeon, which is how you kill enemies. If you do not have a second pocket, make sure to always have your tier 2 or tier 3 weapons equipped when you open a door, because that is the weapon you use for killing the possessed, which are the only enemies that are faster than you. If you trigger multiple enemies, run far enough away that you only have to kill the possessed and then kill them first. Each of them have 100 hit points and no armor. This is where a tier 3 weapon can save you quite a bit of food, but a spiked mace works just fine. The 2 weakest enemies are the leprous soldier and the plague spawn. For both of those enemies, I recommend using a cart thill. They changed the way that stutter stepping works, so you can no longer increase your attack speed, but you can still reduce how often you get attacked. Using your cart thill to attack them at the maximum range, and then as soon as you get the hit off, stutter step a little bit back and then hit them again. As soon as your second attack lands, take another small stutter step before delivering your 3rd attack. If you do this well, they will only get 1 hit off of you, but you may have to practice the movement a little bit. Obviously, if you sneak up on them, then they won't get any hits on you. This is especially important to get good at with the plague spawn, because they have about a 25% chance of poisoning you. If they successfully poison you, they do an extra 30 hit points of true damage, and it can stack, so if you let them hit you too many times, you will lose a lot of health. The two strongest enemies are the Forsaken and the Desecrator. They're not quite as strong as Damn Knights and Templars from the red zone, but they are far from easy. This is where your 3 tier 4 weapons come into play. If you use anything less than a tier 4 weapon on these guys, it will cost you a ton of food and armor, so use a tier 4 weapon. In my second run through of the dungeon, I got this longsword from the last one, and it's halfway in between a tier 4 and a halberd, and it was really good for taking those guys out. When you get to the final room, there will be a witch. Do not try to kill her until everything else is dead. If you're lucky, she'll be over on the side and you won't have to kill her at all. But if she's near the main chest, make sure to kill everything else first, because she doesn't just trigger the enemies in this room. She can sometimes trigger enemies from the rooms you opened but didn't fight. If you think you're about to die, try to make it as far as you can towards the entrance. If you die, the enemies go back to the room they started in. So as long as you don't die in the room that they're at, it's pretty easy to get your stuff back. Once you clear the final room, you can loot the final chest. It seems like the final chest usually has 2 good weapons, 2 rare items, 1 or sometimes 2 pieces of scale armor, which is the new best armor in the game, and a few other random items, 2 of which are usually weapon oil and gears, which you can also find in normal chests scattered throughout the dungeon. These rare items and these gears allow us to build the grindstone in the torture chair, and the weapon oil lets us sharpen our weapons on the grindstone, which is awesome. And I'm seeing a lot of pictures showing that you can get unique items from this chest, like Macri Bodowski, who got my flaming sword. Macri! All I wanted was to have a sword that was on fire. Did I get it? No. And I blame you, Macri, because you got it and I wanted it. I actually did try to get the fire sword after not getting it the first time, partially because I wanted to support the devs of Grimsoul, because they've done such a great job of keeping the game friendly to free-to-play players, which I would encourage you guys, if you have the means to support the devs, this is a fun package. It's not the most efficient package per price, but these weapons are fun. I ended up getting the Night Guest sickle and the poison dagger, which is actually probably better because it let me test it out for you guys. The Night Guest sickle is kind of a fun weapon. If it doesn't activate its power, it kind of sucks. It feels like I'm hitting a desecrator with a really fast club. But when it does activate early on, it's amazing. As you might imagine, instantly killing a desecrator would be amazing. And the poison dagger was pretty cool too. I was a little skeptical at first because it's a dagger, so you know, it does like 19 damage. But just like the plague spawn, you can stack poison damage, and it's true damage. So if you poison a desecrator enough times, you can just walk away and watch him die, which is pretty cool. I didn't get this hammer thing, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It has 40 hit points of true damage, so it's not very good against normal enemies with no armor, but 10 hits will kill a desecrator, which is way better than a scimitar. So that's the cheapest way to do the dungeon, but remember that these normal chests have a chance to drop gears, and you need gears to finish the grindstone. So if you are like me and want to finish your grindstone faster than other players, it might be beneficial for you to go ahead and clear every room. Well, that's it guys, hope that helps. On a final note, the dungeon resets every 8 hours, so if you're too busy to do the dungeon but you have enough time to kill the gatekeeper, you can save up your keys and easily do 2 dungeons a day later when you have more time. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.